Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is episode 3 of our custom ice cream truck build. In episode 2, we got our body swap completed and I got the front fender mounted just to show you how misaligned everything was. But I told you I had a plan to fix it. I've already completed the driver's side. Let me show you how that looks. All right, here's how it's looking. Much better. I did have to shorten the entire quarter panel here by 8 inches, and then I had to shorten the fender by 3 inches, and then drop the entire fender down 4 inches, and then of course fix all of these corners and the little bits and pieces that didn't quite align during that whole process. It was a tremendous amount of work, which I will now show you on the passenger side. All right, so I've got my workstation set up here with hopefully everything I need to complete this job, along with the old slip shear roll and my bead roller. The first step is going to be cutting this fender out as squarely as possible so that I can then set it aside and cut 8 inches out of our quarter panel. So let's get to it. All right, we've got 8 inches cut out of our quarter panel. I've got 2 pieces of tubing underneath here to keep everything straight. The next step is welding this up so we can get our fender remounted. Now, because this fender is going to be mounted 4 inches lower on our quarter panel here, I will need a small sheet of steel that fits in the middle there. For that, I have a 5-inch sheet already pre-cut. I just need to cut it to length and then put a bead roll on each side. That way it'll slip underneath our quarter panel and then underneath the fender, giving us a nice clean seam. All right, so far so good over here. I did spray a rust encapsulator on this piece because it has had rust issues in the past and it does get a decent amount of moisture. While that is drying, I'm going to attack this fender here. Basically, I'm going to take 3 inches out of the center right here, squeeze that together. Once that's all welded up, we'll take this corner right here. We'll put it back where it goes in this corner, only 4 inches lower. It will extend farther down, of course. That's not an issue. We'll deal with that later. And then we will have about 5 inches of overhang right here. Again, that's not an issue because we are going to go ahead and chop this off, and it just so happens to take out this little bit of cancer with it. So everything is working out as it should. So let's get cutting. All right, guys, things are looking very good, but we have three major issues now that we have lowered this wheel arch. The first issue, on the front of our fender here, you see we have two totally different curves. We have got to figure out what we're going to do up there. Back here, we have our wheel arch that is sticking out way too far. We've got to figure out a solution for that. And then lastly, on the very bottom of the fender, because this extends 4 inches, we have got to get this little curve moved up here. So for this portion, I'm going to cut off all of this cancer. We'll take this small little piece, we'll move it right up here. So we have that nice little curve where it's supposed to be. We will have a small amount of overhang here. We'll take that overhang, bend it down so that it matches the edge that we've got right here, and then we'll be good to go. Right here, this is going to be a little bit more tricky. What we will do is slice into the fender with the grinder like that. We'll take the top piece, we'll bend it down just a little bit until we can get it nice and flush with this edge. Then we'll take the top here where we still have the matching lip that matches the rest of the wheel arch. We'll bend it back down, and then that will kind of soften this wheel arch right into where it matches up with the door. On the front, that's a little bit more complicated. I'll show you that when we get there. Let's get this finished up. All right, we've got the rear of the fender looking good. The next step is figuring out what to do on the front here. Now, obviously, we've got to curve this top section down. The problem with that is that we've got this ridge that lifts up, so we're not going to be able to bend this fender. So I've already sanded away this little portion here. I'm going to grind a cut into it so we can take this triangle piece, bend it down, and then we'll be able to bend this section down. Now, the problem with that is that we've got this little lip on it. So I'll cut a whole bunch of reliefs. We'll do a bunch of small ones together here, and then we'll get progressively farther apart, and that will allow us to slowly bend it with the tighter ones, allowing a nice little ridge on the end there, giving us a similar curve to how it looked from the factory. So let's get to it. All right, guys, we've got our fender mounted on the truck. It is looking fantastic. We have an absolute perfect curve on that sheet of steel that we added, and then we've got our fenders lined up just about perfectly with our tire. So the next step is going to be welding all of this together. Now, I can't just start on one end and then weld as I go. It will make the steel way too warped, and it will look absolutely horrible. What I have to do is little tacks. So it'll be like tack, 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 tack all the way through. I'll shoot a bit of compressed air on it that will cool it back down, and then I start back over and continue that until the seam is completed. In the end, it should look a little bit like this, where you can barely even tell that two pieces of steel were mated together. That, of course, comes after the sanding. My best guess is that it will take probably around 4 hours to do all of the welding and all of the sanding. So let's start that right now and see how close I am to that estimate. All right, guys, our fender is all complete. I think the proportions on it came out fantastic. I went ahead and mounted the hood, and you can really see how dramatic the difference is from where we started to where we are now. The next step is going to be cutting the same 8 inches out of our hood. So let's get to it. All right, guys, I think I'm ready to make my first cut on this hood. So let me fill you in on how we got here. I started off by cleaning the hood. I took it outside, gave it a good pressure wash. I then brought it inside, and I spent probably an hour and a half trying to figure out exactly where I am going to make my cuts. I started off thinking maybe I could cut it in the middle, bring it together. Unfortunately, the hood has a ton of lines on it, and these on the top are not perfectly straight, although they look like it. They're only off by about 3/8 of an inch from one end to the other, but that is enough that if I brought them together, they wouldn't line up, and then I would spend a tremendous amount of time trying to clean all that up. So I then came up with the idea of keeping as much of the top lines in place as possible by cutting it 1/2 of an inch in and then 8 inches away from that, taking out this section right here. So this will just move right up to here, no problem. On the bottom here, I've got some 45-degree cuts. That eliminates the difficulty of cutting a curve right there. We will be able to add a little extra strength to this because I will be able to maintain some of this bracketry. Basically, I'll cut this off the bracket here very carefully when that's removed, and then we'll maintain a portion of the bottom here so that we can then re-weld it to that bracket itself, just to give it a little extra support. So a lot of time and prep went into figuring out how this is all going to work. Hopefully, it all makes sense in the end. So let's get cutting. All right, before I move forward on this hood, I wanted to show you a few little gaps that we've got. One right there, we've got one right there, one right there, and then again the same one on the other side here. Again, the reason for that is just because this hood continued to flare out for those 8 inches that we removed. So once we scooch that back section forward, we're now trying to solve that issue. What I'm going to do to solve it, I'm going to tack weld on each side of each one of these lines, and as we do that, I'm going to push the steel down like so. That is going to push it a little bit more this way. Once I get right here, I'll then cut a line. You see I've already sanded that down all the way down that ridge. That will allow us to pull this entire section down just a little bit so that we can then start tack welding from the bottom. We'll work our way up, and then we will seam weld that cut that I've made. Hopefully that will fix everything to within, a 1/16 of an inch or so. Once again, this is a commercial job. This isn't a show truck. We've just got to get it close enough. So let's get this tacked. All right, guys, so I need to pick up a front seat for the ice cream truck because we only have one because of the bus conversion. So I'm out here at the junkyard. I found a couple pretty cool vehicles. They have a little classic section. Let me show you something. This here is a 1937 Dodge, and guess what? It still has the flathead engine in it. So I'm going to see if this thing turns over. If it does, it might be worth coming back for it. You see, it still has the whole front hood assembly. Man, this thing is mostly complete. If it wasn't a four-door, I'm sure it would have been restored long ago. But this would be a very cool powertrain to pull out and put in something else. Anyways, I gotta get back to finding a seat. All right, guys, I think I've got what I'm looking for. You see, we have a 2000 Suburban here, and it has some pretty decent seats. The benefit here is that the seat belts are built into the seats, and the reason that I think these haven't been taken yet is because they are power seats. So without any battery or electronics on here, nobody was able to get them moved forward to get access to the rear bolts. But luckily, I brought my little top-down jump starter, and so I've got it hooked up here so that I can move the seat forward. Ah, we've got power. So now I can get access to these last two bolts. So let's get these seats out of here. I think they said that they're 30 bucks a seat. All right, I've got the seats out. All I have to do, try and make it back in one piece without slipping on the ice. All right, guys, I'm back at the shop. I've got our old seat right next to the two new seats. I went ahead and put the driver's seat on 2-inch spacers to see how close it is in height to our existing seat. It is just a little bit lower, but I think that is where I want it to be. I'm either going to use those 2-inch spacers or I'll turn them sideways to use them as 3-inch. The next step is going to be getting these seats cleaned. For that, I've got my Bissell Spot Clean Pro. I've had really good luck with this in the past. So let's go ahead and jump forward to a little bit of elbow grease on these. All right, here we have it with just the passenger side clean. I think it came out pretty good, especially for just one quick little pass with the Bissell. I'll go ahead and clean this driver's side, and then we will continue on the build. If we find out later on that these seats are kind of standing out because I can't get them clean enough or the colors just don't match, there are a few different manufacturers that make seat covers for this, but that's something that we'll address later on if we have to. Realistically, I don't know how many people are really going to even look inside this truck because obviously our main focus is going to be on the ice cream in the back. So let's get this cleaned up. All right, I've got both seats mounted. I think they look great. I had just enough room to be able to reuse our factory center console, which is very nice. I used some 3x2 rectangular tubing, actually the same tubing that I used on our front fender mounts in order to raise them to the same height as our factory seat. I also got both of our doors mounted. And I did this so that I could get all of the gaps correct on our body before I end up disassembling everything and getting it ready for paint. My biggest concern was this gap right here. If you remember, this door was very damaged because the fender was sagging previously. Well, to get this fender in the correct location, I had to first get the door in the correct location. Now we've got a very nice gap here. There was one issue on the bottom here. If you remember, this fender had 3 bolts in order to line it up. The bottom one on both sides was rusted cleanly through, so I decided to drill a small hole here so I could use a carriage bolt, and then I put a little bracket on the inside here so that I can actually adjust the bottom of this fender. That will also help keep it from rusting out in the future. I also installed our front grille and valence, which is really starting to make this truck look complete. The next step is going to be firing up the truck, pulling it outside so that I can then pressure wash our frame to get it ready for paint. I am going to be painting this with the same product that I used on our pizza truck. It is called Hot Rod Black. It is made by Speedo Coat. It is a wonderful paint for frames and under the engine bay because it gives you great rust protection, and it is like a satin black, so it's not too flat, not too glossy. First things first, let's get this thing outside and get it cleaned up. All right, all the lights are off except for the service airbag light, which of course makes sense. Nice, let's pull it outside. All right, the pressure washing on the frame came out fantastic. The next step back here is going to be starting the process for building the entire box. Up on the front here, I am going to have to remove all of the steel that I just installed so that I can get all of the finishing welding done on the cab and then prepare each individual panel for paint. That is going to be in a future episode, but before I leave you guys, I did want to figure out exactly how much this truck weighs. The chassis has a GVW of 16,000 pounds, so we need to know where we're starting so that we know how much weight we can actually put on this box and keep everything safe. Now, I wanted to weigh this back when it was a school bus. The problem is my lift is only rated at 9,000 pounds, and my best guess for the weight of the school bus was around 10,000 pounds, so I was going to have to use a floor jack, and unfortunately, this was the only floor jack that I had. It's an old Harbor Freight 3-ton jack, and I tried lifting the front of the school bus. It wouldn't even budge it. So I ordered up a new one. This is the new one I'll be using. It's from Vevor. It's rated at the same 3 tons, but I've already tried lifting it, and it had no issues. Plus, this one's aluminum, so it'll be a lot nicer to have around the shop. If you're wondering why I'm not using the lift just to lift this up, because it's obviously under the 9,000 pound rating, the reason is I don't know where the center of gravity is. My best guess is that it's probably somewhere around right here or so, but I don't want to end up using the lift and having too much weight on one side or the other. So I'll lift it up with the jacks for now. We'll figure out how much each corner weighs. We'll figure out where the center of gravity is. We can then mark that center of gravity so that if we have to lift it again in the future, we can use the lift. So let's figure out how much this thing weighs. I should tell you right now, my guess is 7,000 pounds. My Dodge weighs, I think it's like 7,054 or something like that. It has the Cummins, which is much heavier, but this frame is quite beefy and this is a dually. So that's my guess, 7,000 pounds. Let's see how close I am. All right, our front passenger side is 1,500 pounds. If you're wondering what kind of scale I'm using, I made a video on building this a few years back, but just so you know, it's a pretty terrible video because it's old. But it is basically a cattle scale that I got on eBay. It can weigh 5,000 pounds on each corner, so it can weigh vehicles up to 20,000 pounds. The problem is, because it is lifted up, of course, I have to put wooden blocks on all of the other wheels that aren't in the process of being lifted, and then I have to move the scale from one side to the other. It takes a little while, but that's the cheapest way I've found to make a vehicle scale. All right, so we've got 74 more pounds on the front driver's side. Let's see what the rear weighs. All right, driver's side rear, 1,178. Let's see what the last corner weighs. All right, passenger side, 1,174. Let's add that all up. So there were a few surprises when weighing this truck. I told you guys that the center of gravity, my guess, was right about here. If you notice this piece of blue tape, this is where the actual center of gravity is. So there was only 3,074 pounds on the front end, which is very surprising that my old jack couldn't lift that up because that is half of what it's rated at. I was trying to figure out why there's so much weight farther back than I thought, and then I realized this used to be a van, so the engine was much farther back. The engine actually starts right at the wheel center line here. So the entire weight of the engine, the entire weight of the transmission is going to at least partially be split towards the rear end. On the rear end over here also, we of course have dually rear tires, and then we've got heavy duty suspension with a heavy duty axle, and the frame is relatively beefy. So I guess it makes sense looking back. I am surprised overall that we ended up at 5,400 pounds. Like I said, I thought it would be 7,000 or so. And if I'm going to be off with my guess by 1,600 pounds, I would much rather have this truck come in at 5,400 rather than 8,600. So we've got almost 10,000 pounds to work with on this box. That is fantastic news because I think the box will probably come in at about half of that with all of the equipment. So next episode, I'm going to be starting the process of working on that box and then also disassembling this front end, getting it all welded up, and then starting the process for body work. So stay tuned for that. I'll see you guys later.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Bye-bye.